Hello, everybody. My name is Rebecca Nelson, Wine Club Director here at Becker Vineyards, welcoming you to our 17th virtual tasting that we're doing. We're so glad everybody's here to join us once again. We're going to be doing a lot of different things today. I know a lot of you got the Riedel wine glass set, and so I want you to pour wine into all three of the glasses that you got from us. So have a little bit of this fantastic Malbec in every single one of those glasses. If you did not get the Riedel glassware set, go into your kitchen, grab different glasses. Monday, John used a tiki cup for one of his glasses that he was trained. It doesn't matter. We just want you to see that it makes a difference, the different shapes and all of those. So you can do this with us, whether you have the exact same glasses or not. Tonight, we once again have our winemaker, John Leahy. We also have Dr. Joe Becker with us, and we also have our general manager, Bret and Rebecca. So I'm going to kick it over to John, and he's going to get everybody started with this 2017 Malbec. Cheers.
Cheers, Rebecca. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And we are joined by Dr. Joe tonight. And, you know, I got to come up with a really cool nickname for you, Joe. I'm going to make it my mission this week. So anyway, as Rebecca stated, we are trying the 2017 Malbec. This is a fantastic wine. Before we get it too far into it, I would love Joe. Joe, why don't you do an introduction for us for this evening and kick us off?
Sure. Well, welcome everybody to one of our fabulous virtual tastings. I hope everybody is staying safe. But tonight we're trying one of a wine that we have made for many years, and that's Malbec. And just to give some history, Malbec is a traditional Bordeaux varietal. So when you think about the Bordeaux varietals, you think about Cab Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and you have Malbec. And Malbec comes from a area called Cahors, C-A-H-O-R-S, and it was a major varietal in a lot of the Bordeaux blends. And in 1956, there was a huge frost that wiped out a lot of the Malbec, and it kind of got replaced with Merlot. And so, but Malbec has seen a lot, kind of a renaissance in the New World in Argentina, and I think we're able to grow it very well in Texas. I think the hot climate lends itself to the nice acid in this wine, the dark, rich color. So it's a wine. I think the other thing I'll point out too is this is another label done by the Tony Bell. It's a watercolor of kind of a pretty Texas scene. So it's a pretty label too.
Okay.
Cheers.
So this is the label. I just grabbed it off the wonderful prop that Jody, my wife, spent so long setting up. So that means I'm probably going to mess this up. Anyway, I want Rebecca, before I get any, I don't want to start geeking out on the wine until we do the Riedel tasting. And then I want to talk about the origins of Malbec. But I'm very excited. Like I said earlier on Monday to everybody, I was very excited that we're doing this. This is something that we get to do at the winery on the weekends for people when they sign up for this enhanced tasting. We do a Riedel tasting for everybody that wants to sign up for it when we're open, but we really wanted to try to share this with folks. And I firmly believe that glassware makes a big difference in the wine. So without going off too much more, Rebecca, why don't you lead us through this wonderful tasting?
Thank you, John. So I do a lot of the Riedel tastings at the winery. Bret, our general manager, also does them as well. And the two of us were actually trained by some of the people from the Riedel Glassware Company to kind of go over proper protocol and what we're supposed to make sure we mention. So it's really been a treat to get to do these. And when I first sat through one, I kind of was not a believer. I thought, how much difference can it really make? And then I sat through one, and now I'm a crazy person that has 11 different kinds of wine glasses at my house. So it definitely does make a difference. Like I said, you guys should have wine in all three glasses. So what I first want to do, because really it's about the smell and about the taste. So just smell out of all three of the glasses, one after another, go back and forth and see what things you get in one glass that you don't get in another. I tend to get a lot more of the fruit notes in this Old World Syrah glass than in the other two. The Pinot Noir glass that I absolutely loved, the Kuhnmartin from Monday, I don't get a whole lot on the nose in that glass. It kind of gets lost. And then in the Bordeaux glass, I like it better out of the Bordeaux glass than the Pinot Noir glass. But for me, the best aromas, the best bouquet, the best fruit notes that I get and I can kind of identify different aromas in is the Old World Syrah glass for me. What do you think, John, Joe?
I think this is definitely it's a pretty amazing experience. This is probably one of my two favorite sort of sensory experiences for tasting and smelling wine. The other one is John does a sensory evaluation where we look at different spices like lychee and green peppers so that you can kind of learn to look for them in wine. And I think, I would make 2 points here. One is that Robert Mondavi told us a long time ago that he himself did not necessarily believe in the glass until he experienced the Riedel glasses and tasted the differences in the wine. And I think too, as to what Rebecca's getting at, most of what we taste is what we smell. And so how these glasses express the wine, the aroma, and the flavor is very different. And it's fun to experiment with that.
Absolutely. So I want everybody to taste the wine now. Out of all three glasses, taste it out of that big Pinot Noir glass, taste it out of that Old World Syrah glass, taste it out of the Cabernet glass, that big Bordeaux glass, and see what you're getting, what you're lacking on some, what you're getting on others. And like Joe said, you smell what you taste a lot of times. So the one that you typically like the nose on a lot of times is the one that you're going to get the most flavor from, but it doesn't always work that way. So you got to try them, see what you're getting, what you're not getting. Also pay attention. All of these glasses have a different type of opening. So all of them have a different sort of a rim opening at the top. The Syrah glass is the smallest one. The Bordeaux glass is the widest at the mouth. All of that is going to make a difference in how you hold your mouth as you drink, which is then going to make a difference where the wine falls on your tongue, which makes a difference into what you're going to taste and how that's going to affect your palate as you're tasting the wine. So all of those things, it's all physics, it's all science that goes into kind of developing these glasses for the proper purposes of what they're trying to extract from these different wines. Do you guys have a preference on which wine glass you prefer it out of as of yet?
John, I'm getting kind of...
yeah, go ahead, Joe.
John, I'm getting kind of a floral note on the aroma. Is that something you're getting as well?
I do get a lot of florals off of here. Besides me trying to be a smart aleck in the background, I do. It's funny about using the Pinot glass. I can't quite get them to pour into the same glasses at the same time. Sorry, I'm being attacked by a monster. Yeah, he decided that he's going to come up and join us for this thing. So what do you think there, buddy? No, he doesn't like it. The thing that I get a lot out of here, Joe, are the deeper cooking spices on the leche or vanilla, definitely, but vanilla. I also get a lot of brown spices. Rebecca, back to your point about the Syrah glass.
Yes.
And I really did. I was going back and forth here for a minute. I actually get a lot more cellar-esque or deeper dark notes out of the Syrah glass than I do out of the Bordeaux glass.
Yeah, I just get a lot of different aromas out of it. Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things that we realized when we started doing this with Riedel was how amazing the Syrah glass performed with a lot of our wines. And I really do think that if you look at this tasting set from left to right, the way that they box it is Pinot Noir, the Syrah, and then the Cabernet. You think about the flavor profiles of light-bodied, middle-bodied, and heavy wine. And that's how I explain this tasting set that we have at the winery, is that lighter body really does great in that Pinot glass, the middle-body Syrah, and then the heavier in the Cab glass. But I was shocked because I do not own the Syrah glass. And I was amazed at how often it went, with a lot of the wines that we were pouring, or I didn't own them until we started doing this many years ago with Riedel. And I'll tell a little bit of the story about how this Riedel partnership with Becker came on. And so we are official Riedel sponsored winery. Rebecca and I think, are some of the very few people that are able to do their 3-pack tasting that Riedel sponsors. And when this all started was because we did a United Way fundraiser in San Antonio for the last 15 or 30 or 20 years. I think Joe could probably attest to the time that we've done it. But they would always be mad because they would come there and we weren't using Riedel glasses. And a lot of it was just because, number one, we go through so many glasses, the price was an issue. And so finally we worked all that out and we got the deal done. And now we're an official Riedel winery. And it's been just a fun process for us to kind of see what these glasses do. And when people come and get to do these tastings in the library, I was one of the ones that was a skeptic. So when we first started this, I didn't really think the glass made that big a difference. And I'm telling you right now, if you're at home and you don't have these 3 sets of glasses, go grab a water glass and a wine glass and a plastic cup and try the wines. That's how simple this could be. And it is that dramatic, at least for me in these Riedel glasses, because varietal, specific glasses do make a difference. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're not using your glasses to your advantage as a consumer. And I really think that, people a lot of times overlook that. We go to a ton of places that have maybe the worst glass in the world, but they still want to charge you $200 for a bottle of wine. And you start trying wine out of these glasses and you understand what they're doing.
So Bret,
yeah,
Bret,
absolutely.
you have a great story about it's a short story about an interaction with Georg Riedel. Could you share that?
So the first setting that I went through on this Riedel tasting, I've done the Riedel tasting with the Riedel folks at least, I think, 30 times. And when we started down this path of doing the certified tastings, they said, well, you guys can do it. And I said, well, you're supposed to go to school to do this. And they said, yeah, that's true, but we can go ahead and certify you. And I said, well, why? He goes, because you've done it like 30 times. So the first one that I ever went to was at the stables at the Pearl Brewery, and Dr. Becker was there to introduce George Riedel, who I think is the 13th or 14th generation. Is that right, Rebecca? I can't remember.
I think it's 13th, yeah.
Yeah. And we were sitting there with Dr. Becker and Miss Becker, and they were going through the introduction, and Joe, your dad, introduced him by the wrong name. He called him Gaylord instead of George. And as we were sitting there, he was walking us through in his Austrian accent. And, if you're a wine person or you like wine, they put wine in front of you, you're immediately going to start picking up wine and going through like the smells and the taste. And so he saw us on the front row, and Joe, is me and your mom sitting side by side. And they said, we were trying the wines, and he looked down and saw us, and he says, you do not touch the wine until I tell you to. And I remember Bunny got so worked up about it that we were going through the tasting, and she said, I'm scared to touch one of these glasses. And I said, well, Bunny, if he yells at us again, I'm going to jump over this table and take him out. So that's kind of what we, it was kind of a cool joke between us, during that tasting.
Can I ask a question, John?
Yes.
The vanilla note that's very nice in this, is that from the American oak, or what's been your experience with oak aging and Malbec?
Well, yeah, the vanilla that you catch on this is definitely the amount of new American oak that we used in this particular vintage. So Malbec, like Merlot and like Tempranillo, they all love American oak. It creates the perfect aging environment for those wines. The trick that we know about American oak is how old the staves are. So we literally, when they make the staves for the barrel, they let the staves age for 3 to 4 years outside before they make the barrel. That's very, very imperative for that oak. And that's where that vanilla-esque edge comes from. If you don't age those staves long enough, you get a lot of bitter uptake from the American oak that you don't find in the French oak. So the trade-off is no bitterness, but a lot of vanilla edge or lychee edge notes in this wine, which is really, really rather nice. It's very complimentary to the Malbec. So is everybody found their favorite glass at home? I think if you haven't, keep going, but let's give this another swirl and a taste. Also, guys, keep those questions rolling. I've seen a few of them. Also, hello to Colorado, and hello to, to South Carolina. Thanks for joining us. But I think it's more than just the vanilla on there, Joe, too. That cooking spice that I referenced earlier also comes from that American oak, those toasted edges. That really brings it out. But, you know, leche, unlike vanilla, even though they're very similar, leche actually comes from the skin of the grape, where vanilla, a overt amount of vanilla is actually coming from the oak, the imparted toasted oak edge to that. Just like lavender or thyme or any herb like that comes from the juice and the edge of vanilla or coffee, or those darker notes are actually coming from the skin.
We've always, sorry, John.
I do think that what all the things that John is describing is coming, it's being accentuated again by these three different glasses. And it's amazing to me how you can take the exact same wine. And the other thing when we do these Riedel tastings is we do not let, we don't pour the wine in the glass before the customer gets there, just like the people at home are doing. And when you go through the Riedel seminar, they tell you the reason why they do that is because people think they're being tricked or duped because they're not the one pouring the wine in their own glass. And to me, the three glasses are showing three different wines completely, and good, better, and different. I think one accentuates maybe oak, one accentuates, there's completely different flavors coming out of each one of my three glasses. And that's, again,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly with the design difference there, Brett. Like we've discussed, I mean, I think we take it for granted how the design of these glasses, if you see the edges, how that focuses the nose and the palate, what hits your palate first. And like Joe said earlier, 80% of what we're tasting, we're taking in through the nose first. You know, so I also want to, before we get too far afield, I really want to briefly touch on the vineyards where these grapes came from. So yes, this wine is readily available to anybody out in the general marketplace here in Texas. You know, this is one of our broad market, again, this is the number 2 and Texas wine ambassador is what we love to call it. This introduces people to what a good Texas wine is. Readily available at your favorite bottle shop or grocery store here, and at an extraordinarily reasonable price too. It's a great introduction to what Texas can do. And the vineyards that we've used Jet Wilmoth's vineyard, we use Stephen Cindy Newsom's vineyard, the Canada family vineyard, and also our own vineyard here at the estate, Becker Vineyards. So we get all of these vineyards together, a combination of hill country and high plains, and this is the result. It's a great, broad, wonderful, beautiful red wine. You know, Malbec itself took a hold in the New World down in Argentina before it really took off here in the U.S. And I believe that one of the inspirations for Becker Vineyards were those Malbecs from Argentina. Joe, can you give us that story about that inspiration?
Well, I wanted to share actually one other story because the oak. We've always been fascinated with the American oak, and when I know that when Mom and Dad first started, a lot of what they were inspired by were the early silver oak and the vanilla character that John's referencing that you got in some of their younger cabs, from the 80s. And so when we started, the first time we really bought barrels, my father wanted to buy some barrels from the Cooper in Higbee, Missouri, that made the silver oak barrels. And I greatly remember this conversation because I was trying to get my dad to help me with homework, and he was on the phone for 2 hours with the Cooper in Missouri, trying to convince them to sell us these the same oak barrels that were being made for silver oak. And finally, Dad convinced them to give us 6. We were happy to have 6 of their barrels. And many, many years ago, when Silver Oak took over the cooperage, they allowed us to continue to buy barrels from them. And that the effect of the American oak on these red wines, I think, is incredible. And just to get back to that, and I think as far as Argentina goes, my first experience with these great Argentina Malbecs was long ago when the Culinaria Festival in San Antonio used to be called the New World Wine and Food Festival. They one year featured wines from Argentina, and they brought in several famous winemakers, Pascal Toro, and I remember getting inundated with children. Just the experience of the red wine and the Argentina barbecue is an amazing, very similar to Texas style.
Okay, so sorry, Joe. I was laughing there because we could hear the kids. It's perfect, though. You know, this is a family business, and,
right?
And all generations are involved from start to go. So, hey, welcome to the next Becker generation. Here we go, buddy. That's awesome.
Just out of the pool.
Yeah, right on. So I do appreciate the A&K barrels that we used to get from Higbee. We still source a lot of our American oak still comes from Missouri. Actually, it's a different ranch right now. The A&K cooperage went under full control of Silver Oak. They bought them out and stopped selling to the general wine public. So we source our American oak from a single ranch very close to Higbee. But these folks are just wonderful. They've been making barrels since the mid 1800s from the same property outside of Lebanon, Missouri. And the cooperage that we buy them through is, of course, Demtos. I got to meet the folks that make these barrels, and they're sixth generation, working on the same farm and sustainably harvesting those trees. So they've had a multiple generation investment in that. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy, the fact that we get to deal with such a deeply felt commitment from that family. And it makes it really a pleasure to deal with. So all the way around, there's nothing not to love about being involved with this ag business of winemaking.
Well, John, I think it's important to talk about the fact that different barrels, they have as much impact as what these glasses are having. So right. The different oaks, if you put the same wine in a different oak barrel, it's going to have this big of an impact on the way that the wine tastes. And I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between French and American, or the difference in toast levels on barrels. And we're showing this drastic comparison in 3 wine glasses, and the comparison being just as drastic by ordering a different toast or using a different yeast or different style of barrel.
Yeah, really. So the yeast, that's something we should look into.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, to your point, Bret, absolutely. We did. So, we make several different Malbecs, and this particular one is, 5 different wines coming together, 5 different Malbecs coming together to form this one Malbec. And it's not just, we use several different yeasts. I think actually on this particular one, we've used 6 different yeasts, on 5 different wines, which for those of you at home, that's how drunk Irish math goes. So actually the idea here is that we take some of the same fruit from the same vineyard, but we treat it differently, different oak program, different yeast, and then we're allowed to come back together and blend them back together, still all Malbec, and yet you're painting with 2 different colors of the same wine.
And just to
the other thing, and here's the point too, is the oak. The primary difference between American and French oak, French tends to offer a more savory characteristic, and American oak tends to offer a sweeter characteristic. Now, it's not that American oak offers sugar to the wine. By sweet, I simply mean fruit forward, sweeter notes like vanilla or like a lavender edge, or those types of things. Where savory to me are more dark notes like coffee or chocolate, or dark red fruits like cherry or currant. So those are the things that we look for. And all of these flavors exist within the grape naturally, but it's through the process of winemaking that we bring these flavors forward. We are making basically a beverage for you to enjoy with all of these different subtleties, so that they'll go with many different occasions, whether it be your wonderful young son who just got out of the pool, or
let me make a point about the glasses for a second, and that is one of the things that we encounter very commonly is how these wines evolve just sitting in the glass, And I think just sitting here, you know, for the last 15 or 20 minutes, the wine in the Syrah glass, I think, has opened up even more. I think it's softened a little bit. And it's interesting to me that the wine in the Pinot glass is, you know, the taste is there, but you're still, when you smell it, the aroma is still very much that cellar note that John described earlier. And we experience that a lot when we do our tastings, that just sitting there, the wines can change and evolve. I think it's an interesting phenomenon.
And I think Rebecca talked about the difference in those two flavors, like in Riedel's version, like the pointed note and I'm not going to steal your thunder, but it involves physics.
Well, that's your story, Bret. Well, it really does involve physics. And like I was alluding to earlier, you know, the shape of the opening and also how you hold your mouth and where it falls on your tongue. But I think John was trying to point out on Monday and a few other times, you know, if you grab two of the glasses and you tilt them away from you and watch how the wine, as it gets closer to where it would leave the glass, if you look from above, you can see the shape of the wine. And in some of them, it's going to be much more of an arc. So it's going to have a broader, it's going to place itself on your tongue in a much broader area. Others, it's going to be a lot more pointed. And so it's going to direct the wine to a very specific area of your tongue and a very specific point on your palate. And that really makes a huge difference when you're tasting. When we're smelling and we're trying to come up with the aromas, you know, the different shapes of the glass, that Pinot glass lets that wine, you know, it lets it interact with the air, and then it kind of traps the aromas down there and they're kind of dispersed. So it kind of mutes the aroma for me on this wine. With the Syrah glass, you can see that, yes, it's still a nice, good size wide bowl, but then it very much comes to a point. It's not as wide, so it releases that. It allows the wine to mix with the air and bring those aromas about, but then it kind of concentrates them directly to your nose. And on the Big Bordeaux Cab glass, these are actually about the same width at their widest point, but this one continues. It doesn't go in. So while it allows that wine to mix, it just lets those aromas disperse. And so all three of those, depending on what wine you're tasting, those are going to significantly enhance certain types of wines with their particular aromas and flavors. And it's going to maybe not show other wines as well as it could because of the aromas and flavors. And what you touched on, you know, when we have people pour the wine themselves, because it's not just, okay, if you take a glass of wine in a plastic cup and then you pour it in a Riedel wine glass, sure, it better taste a lot better out of a Riedel wine glass than it does a plastic cup. But from Riedel glass to Riedel glass, these are all fantastic, beautiful glasses, but every single wine tastes differently in all of these wonderful wine glasses. And so really it's about having fun with your wine, which is what we always want to encourage people to do, and taste them out of different glasses. And then the most important thing, and I can't stress this enough, you can wash your glasses in the morning. Okay, so when you try wine out of 17 different glasses, don't then think that you need to wash them all tonight. You'll break them all and you'll not have any wine glasses. And I've watched people do it at dinner parties where they try to help. Oh, here, let me help you with the wine glasses after we've been drinking wine all evening, and you just break them. Rinse them, set them down. You can wash them in the morning. It's fine.
I agree. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Rebecca. Do not wash your glasses at night after you've enjoyed a nice evening. Plus, it's so much fun when you're making coffee in the morning to see the entire wreck that is your kitchen. So, I want to point out there was a great comment from Gary Clark about he just tried it with a red Solo cup. Stick with the glass. I couldn't agree more. So Joe and Rebecca both, and of course Bret, but I'll start with you, Joe. Food pairing that you'll put with the Malbec.
Oh gosh, I think as I was alluding to earlier, you know, very mild sriracha sauce, maybe with some brisket, something to kind of hold up to this dark, rich fruit note that you get in this wine. Rebecca, what do you think? Your food of choice.
I'm gonna go with an old favorite of mine. I would have a grilled Iowa pork chop with this. Nice. I think it would be wonderful.
Oh, you know, the Iowa Bacon and Wine Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bret, what food of choice for you, sir?
Carnegie salad is what I'm feeling. I don't know why. It sounds like and again, you try to go with things that you think are going to work, and sometimes it's going to be an epic success, and other times it's going to be an epic fail. But I think that the floral notes and the different nuances in this Malbec, and I'm going to go real quick in the story about how this Malbec came to be, because you touched on it earlier. We were buying more Malbec to make more claret. Okay. And as the Malbec contracts came in, I think we have 5 growers now that grow Malbec. As we tasted the Malbec out of the barrel, I remember when the Beckers would come in, we'd taste out of the barrel, and they said, "This is so good. We're not just going to blend it away. We're going to make Malbec." So that was year 1. Year 2, well, this one's better than the other one. We're going to make Reserve Malbec. Year 3, the Malbec that we blend with Petit Verdot is really good, so we're going to call that Raven, right? And now it's called Ranger Haze. And so we went from one in particular wine to having 4 different SKUs, and I just think that the Malbec itself is so individually, it's a great taste. It needs its own little bite of food, and I think you're going to find that Malbec is going to pair very different with things that Cabernet would pair with, or that Pinot Noir would pair. Lighter versus heavier, and I think this is medium.
Absolutely. So I've been seeing some food suggestions on here. One was roasted garlic hummus with toast points. Another one from some weird lady named Sarah Shelp about strawberries. So I'll one up you, Sarah. And my food of choice for this wine, honestly, blackberry pie. So, I mean, it goes great with steak, yes, but blackberry pie, it does very, very well with that. So anyway, for those of you at home think I'm just randomly picking on people, I actually know Sarah Shelp, an old friend. So I just thought I'd give her a little help. So, before we wrap things up, I want to encourage everybody to write their questions in, please. We're going to do a Q&A after this, as usual. But also, if you don't have any food and you want a glass of wine, please feel free to enjoy the glass of wine, regardless of what it is. But this Malbec is so smooth, it does great with food, but it also does well as an aperitif. And I wanted to point that out. A nice glass after a hard day's work, or as Dr. Joe, a hard day in the pool playing with his children and saving lives. So anyway, Joe, any final words before we wrap things up, sir?
Well, this wine was poured at the rodeo this year in San Antonio, where it was I believe it was an award winner.
Yes.
And I thought it was a absolute perfect pairing with a lot of the barbecue being served there, a lot of the kind of lighter barbecue sauce foods, and it's also just a wonderful wine to drink on its own. So I really love this Malbec.
I do too, and I want to remind everybody, coming Friday we're going to be doing what was the wine again, Rebecca, that we're doing?
Cab Franc.
She's the Cab Franc fan. So anyway, I will be grilling a filet. But also out there, so both with this wine and with the Cab Franc, a really nice smoky black bean burger. I know this is going to go against everybody's grain, but a black bean burger does very well with both this wine and the Cab Franc. But so Friday, I'm going to be doing a filet and some sauteed mushrooms with the Cab Franc. That's my choice for Food Friday. If you all want to join us with your favorite beef dish, a hamburger, doesn't matter, whatever you want to make some food and join us for Food Friday. It'll be wonderful. And also, John, don't forget Thursday. Yes, John, sir.
Before we finish, I want to throw a shout out. We keep doing this, and I keep forgetting to mention the people that are at the winery doing the work to get these boxes out. Angie and Peggy and the shipping. These ladies have been, like it's a machine. If you look at the tasting room, it looks like a shipping department. It's not pretty, it's not fancy. There's cardboard shoved in every corner. But to get this stuff out and get it on time is what these folks have been doing. And so I want to give them a big props.
Oh yes, I'm gonna double down on that. And since Angie is responsible for reviewing these broadcasts, she goes back through. Angie, get back to work. No, Angie and Peggy deserve all of our thanks and gratitude, and they're wonderful folks. And so if you guys can't find this wine for whatever reason, or if you're not in state, give our wine club department a call, 830-644-2681, extension 230. Angie or Peggy will pick up that phone and they will help you out. They are absolutely backbone for us. And I also want to tell you all at home too, it does take 33 to 40 people to make a glass of wine. So there are a lot of people we owe our thanks to, not just Angie and Peggy, but everybody. So cheers to everyone. Write your questions in. And don't forget Mother's Day is coming up. So we have a Mother's Day pack up and some lavender boxes that Chris has been working on. Go on our website, find those out. Otherwise, great health to everyone and good wine. Have a good night.
Cheers.